Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 11th of July. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to start with the north, with the Kharkiv area. From this area, as you can see, this area is under very heavy shelling. The Russians are moving very slowly, they don't need to hurry up, they are doing their job according to the plan. And today there was a report from the Russian military authorities. And according to this report, the Russians managed to kill around 250 soldiers. And they managed to destroy up to 25 armored vehicles and so on. If we take a look at the map of disposition of forces, we see that there are some Foreign Legion battalion in this area. So we can say that according to the Russian sources, this battalion had losses during this weekend, and they lost around 250 soldiers. They didn't mention about the nationality of those soldiers. I think that was some kind of a mix. Now let's move to the south, and now let's talk about Izum bridgehead. Yesterday we discussed about the situation in this area, and we discussed about projection on this area. And the main goal for the Russians in this area, of course, to short the front line, to clear it, to finally to establish control, or like without any questions, without any doubts, over Mazanovka, Krasnopolye, Dolina, Bogorodichna. And this morning we got another report from Bogorodichna that this town was taken by the Russians, and this information was confirmed by the military authorities of DPR, because this town is located on the territory of DPR, or we can say like the territory which will be transferred to DPR as soon as this area will be taken by the Russians. So this we got another confirmation. I can say that this is the second or the third confirmation of taking town Bogorodichna, and today it was confirmed by the military authorities. So I'm sure that in a day or two we're gonna see some information, some updates on this map, and then we'll follow, and also we will follow for the Ukrainian military authorities report. Another update from Dovginka Mazanovka area. There was some offensive operation towards Krasnopolye from this bank of these fish lakes, and the Russians were trying to attack Krasnopolye, storming with the heavy equipment. There are still heavy clashes there. These areas are still in the gray zone. So I think that in a day or two, this area also will be taken by the Russians. And why I'm saying that I think that this area will be taken by the Russians, I'm based my projection on the fact that this area is protected by this, not this area, but this area is protected by the 25th Airborne Brigade. So the area between Велика Kumyshovacha and towards this Krasnopolye, Dolina, Mazanovka is protected with two brigades, with 25th Airborne and with 81st Airborne Brigade. But during these days, this 25th Airborne Brigade were moved. This one that was located on the Izum bridgehead, and the one which protects with the tank brigade, 3rd Tank Brigade, the way towards Barvinkova. This brigade were transferred to Slaviansk-Seversk bridgehead. This map is not updated, but according to the Russian sources, this brigade were transferred here, in the area between Slaviansk and Ceversk. And this morning, the Russian military authorities reported that they were hunting this brigade for a very long time, and that during these days they dealt a lot of damage to this brigade. And by this morning, the losses of this brigade is around 70% of the numbers of soldiers in this brigade. So we need to understand that such kind of brigades is around 4,000 soldiers. It's approximately, softly, from brigade to brigade, this number may differ. So we can say that if there is, according to some standards, around 4,000 soldiers, we can say that 2,800 soldiers were killed during the battles for Slaviansk and Seversk, Izum, Slaviansk, Seversk. Furthermore, we see that the Ukrainians were forced to move this brigade to Seversk to reinforce this area. And the question is, why did they do this? And the only answer I have is that they don't have possibility to reinforce this area with soldiers from other regions. We'll come to this situation a little bit later. So I'll repeat myself that according to the Russian sources, they took Bogorodichne. Now let's move to our Ceversk bridgehead and the battle for Ceversk. There is a lot of updates from this area. There are very heavy clashes. If you remember, yesterday we discussed that the Russians established control over Grigorievka, this town, but this morning we got more and more updates from the Russian sources that this town is not for 100% under the Russians. So I think that during this night there was some kind of counter-offensive operation from the Ukrainian side. There were very heavy clashes near Grigorievka, and now this town, like half of this town is in the gray zone, and something like half of this town is under the Russians. But I'm sure that in a day or two we're going to see that this whole town is going to be taken by the Russians. So yesterday we discussed this area. We discussed about the fact that the Russians started their hunting for some brigades in this area, some types of forces. We discussed that the Russians managed to not to ruin, but to deal a lot of damage to the 72nd Mechanized Brigade, this one. This morning we didn't get any updates about this brigade, so I think that maybe in a day or two we're gonna receive more updates, or maybe this brigade managed to somehow to hide, to establish their position, and from like this morning there is no reason to hunt this brigade anymore, because maybe it's difficult, or maybe they managed to stretch their forces, or maybe this brigade is in a very close combat with the Russians, who is fighting in area between Klinovo and Vershina, because if you take a look at the Russian sources map or any map, and if you take a look at the Ukrainian military authorities report, they announced that, as we discussed, the area between Veselo Dolina, Zaitsev, Vershina is the area with the heaviest clashes. Furthermore, if we take a look at the map of this position, there is another brigade, this one, the 118th Territorial Defense Brigade. This brigade was fighting near Sporne, but if you remember, Sporne has fallen a few days, maybe a week ago, so that's why this brigade belongs to Charlie Group that is located between Bakhmut, Solidar, Belogorovka, Yakovlivka, Sporne. So this brigade, the Ukrainians moved this brigade from Sporne. They were defeated there. There was no report about their losses or something like this. So that's why the Ukrainians moved this brigade from Sporne, and they moved this brigade towards Solidar, towards Veselo Dolina. So as I understand, this area from the Russian side, there is Wagner's forces are storming, are pushing, and from the Ukrainian side there is 72nd Mechanized Brigade. Also there is like 118th Territorial Defense Brigade, and we can say that these forces, 10th Mountain Brigade and 108th Mountain Battalion. But the thing is that, as I understand, the Russians changed their hunting targets, and they start shelling these 118th Territorial Defense Brigade. According to the information I have, their main base of this Territorial Defense Brigade was located in town Chasov Yar. It's a very town with a very bad story in history. Chasov Yar, as I understand, the Ukrainians chose this town. This town is, we can say, far from the zero line. It's like behind Artyomovsk, between Konstantinovka and Artyomovsk, and this town served as the area, as the main base, this one, for howitzers, for 72nd Brigade, for 118th Brigade. And as you remember, during the last week and today, the Russians, the only thing we see that they are shelling and bombing this town heavily. And today we got report that the Russians launched another rockets, and they destroyed the base of that 118th Brigade, and during one missile attack they managed to kill around 300 of Ukrainian soldiers. So the thing is that was the soldiers who was resting. So there is some kind of rotation. Some forces was on the front line, some forces were resting. So now we understand that the Russians destroyed those forces who were resting, and now the forces who is on the front line are no longer able to do some retreat, not retreat, sorry, but some changings, some rotations. If you remember, we saw the same picture near Белогора, Toshkovka, Gorska Zatoya, that right before the Russians started their offensive operation, the first thing they did, they count timings, according to their like RECO information they got, that there was a time for rotation for some particular brigades. And because of that fact, they dealt a lot of damage to those brigades who was like resting, and when the time for rotation came, nobody wanted to do this, so that's why there was no forces for rotation, and the Ukrainians were forced to move some unexperienced forces, and that's why the Russians did a very successful breakthrough and took Lysychansk agglomeration for a few days. So now I see that now the Russians are doing almost the same thing. They started ruining the 118th Brigade on the front line, and by the time of rotation, by coming of this by this timing, the Russians started to show their forces that were in rotation, that were like in resting, and so on. So as I can see, according to information we have from the Russian Ministry of Defense, the 72nd Brigade, we heard about losses for more than 30%. There are very big losses in 118th Defense Territorial Brigade. That means there is no number, approximate number of how much, 50 is 40%, but they were defeated near Sporne, and now these forces are fighting with Wagner's near Klinovo and near Zaitsevo, Veselaya Dolina. Of course, they have losses there. Furthermore, their reserves also were destroyed by the rockets. So I understand that at least these two brigades, if not today, then yes, tomorrow they will be out of game. Furthermore, we discussed that the 25th Brigade, Assault Airborne Brigade, has losses more than 70%, and this brigade was moved towards Ceversk, Slaviansk. So at least 3 of these brigades is out of game. Furthermore, if you remember, there is a 79th Air Assault Brigade. This brigade is also out of game. Like a few weeks ago, we got information that their losses is around 80%. Maybe they managed to fulfill their forces because some time passed since that time, but I'm not sure about this. And if they did something, they fulfilled a little bit, maybe more than 10, but I'm not sure that they're 100% ready for the further operation. And furthermore, the Russians also changed their demilitarization targets in this area. They switched from 72nd Mechanized Brigade towards 58th Motorized Brigade that located near Ceversk. So this motorized brigade, as far as I understand, is involved into battles for Ivano-Daryevka, Sporne, for the main road. So this main road that we were discussing with the Russian primary road of their attacks, the line between Sporne, Ivano-Daryevka, Vyimka, and after that Zvanivka. And on the line of Zvanivka, as I understand, this 58th motorized brigade is located, and this morning we got update from the Russian sources that somewhere near Bakhmut their headquarters were destroyed. So we can say that starting this morning these forces had no command, at least their commanders were destroyed during this attack. There were no update about the losses, how much of the commanders is this. Of course, the main forces are still alive, this 58th Brigade, but for some period of time they lost their commanders, and they were totally they had no orientation on these fields and so on. And meanwhile, the Russians were pushing towards Grigorievka and Serebryanka and towards Ivano-Daryevka. So we can say that they changed the Russians changed their demilitarization targets, and maybe tomorrow we're going to see more updates about this 58th Motorized Brigade, and that the Russians will try to reduce them even more than they did this right now. So we see the picture, right? So a lot of at least 4 brigades, 118th, 72nd one, 58s, 25s, and 79s. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 brigades is under very heavy Russian shelling. Their losses are very big, so we can say that very soon the Russians will be able to start frontline offensive operation towards Ceversk or to encircle it because of this big number of Ukrainian losses. If you're talking about the Ukrainian reserves, they still have some 118s, 11s, 111th Defense Brigade, and 112th Defense Brigade. So, and they're in the very deep reserves, very far, not very far from front lines. They're like somewhere in the middle between Kramatorsk, Artyomovsk, Chasov Yar. So they're fresh, as I understand. I haven't heard anything about them, about their losses. So I suppose that they still have something to send on the zero line. But the question is where to send. To the north to protect Ceversk, or to the south to protect the Ukrainians from being encircled near Ugledarskaya power plant. So situation for them is very difficult. Furthermore, we remember that during this weekend the Russians, as I understand, reduced 26th Artillery Brigade by attacking their HIMARS system, by attacking their howitzer systems, by attacking their warehouses, and so on. So this is the picture about near Ceversk. The question is, do the Ukrainians are able to send some reinforcement to this area to fulfill their losses during this weekend? I think they can't. I think they can't because of one reason, and the reason is that there is just one railroad that leads to this area, to Slaviansk, and this road moves through Barvinkovo. And this area is under total fire control. Furthermore, to reach Barvinkovo, the Ukrainians need to get Lazova, Blizniki, and the problem with Lazova, if we take a look at Lazova, is that this railroad station, you see that you can't go through this town. You need to make a stop on the railroad station, and there was a lot of report in the past that while the Ukrainians had some rest on Lazova, they were shelled heavily. But not even the problem with Lazova. The problem is with Dnipro, and that there is only one way to cross this area using the roads over the river, and there are not a lot of them, and as I understand, all these bridges is under total Russian control. So this is the reason why the Ukrainians are not sending forces there, and they prefer to fight in this area using the forces that located in this area. Maybe sometimes they're sending some reinforcement from Kharkiv area, and if we're talking about the forces that located on the south, from Odessa, Nikolaev, Zaporozhye, the Ukrainians are not sending them there. For many reasons. First of all, to do this, they need to cross the river. They need to use railroad. Of course, nobody is going to send the reinforcement using the regular road. It will be very long. It might take a long time, and there is no 100% sure that everybody, if they will do this separately, disorganized, that half of them, of those Ukrainian soldiers, won't leave the battlefield and just run away because they understand where they're sent. So that's why the Ukrainians are not sending reinforcement to this area. But the question is, what are they planning to do? And of course, everybody heard, and yesterday we heard that Zelensky gave an order to start offensive operation toward the south, and he ordered to clear the south. For me, I understand the situation as the follow. The Ukrainians have a lot of forces on the west side of Dnipro River in this area. They have a lot of forces, but they don't have possibility to move their forces towards Slaviansk, Kramatorsk to reinforce this area in centralized way. Of course, they can do this using decentralized way, but this is not an option for this current situation. So they have forces, but they don't have possibility to move these forces to the east. So they have forces, and so that's why it's the question: if you can't go there, so that means that you need to force the Russians to come here. So I think this is the reason why the Ukrainians are planning to start their offensive operation on the south. I got some questions from your side how this offensive operation on the south is going to look like. We won't see anything similar that the Russians did. There wouldn't be some very interesting short operations, like very sharp operations. No. If Ukrainians are going to start any offensive operation in the south, they're going to do this using the broad front line tactic. What does it mean, broad front line tactic? That means that they have a lot of forces. The only thing they need to do is to stretch the Russians' artillery covering. So they need to stretch the Russian artillery attacks, rocket attacks, their forces. So that's why the Ukrainians are going to attack all along the front line. Every single it will be something like in the Second World War, when the Soviet soldiers raced from the trenches and they started their running towards the Germans' position. So it will be the same thing. Of course, it's my projection. Maybe there will be something else, but as I understand, it's the best solution for the Ukrainians to start the offensive operation all over the front line. If you take a look at the Russian-Ukrainian forces, you see they have some mechanized brigade, another mechanized, another motorized tank brigade. The same situation on the south of Zaporozhye, tank brigade, motorized brigade. So they have forces that uses some vehicles, and using these vehicles they can attack all along the front line. And this is exactly what are we going to see. And do we see, are we going to see? Yes, we are going to see, because the Ukrainians will do this. We discussed many times about the West support, West supply, and of course this is the time. We talk about the August, about the July, about the beginning of July, about the beginning of August. This is the time. The Ukrainians can't send their forces there, so that's why they will force the Russians to send their forces on this front line. About another updates from the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, the Ukrainians continue using the HIMARS. They're shelling the Russians' warehouses. There was another shell of another warehouses on the territory of LPR. And according to the Russian sources, a lot of civilians were killed during those shelling, those HIMARS attacks. So we'll follow the situation. Another update is that in the Kharkiv area, in the ex-Kharkiv area, like the territory Kharkiv region that is under the Russian control, there was some terrorist attack, and the head of this area, some authority from this area, were killed during this attack. So the Ukrainians decided to continue with this tactic. They tried to kill, to spot, to find every single Ukrainian who is working with the Russian authorities. And it's not the first attack. They had a few successful attacks in the past. So we'll see, and I think that they will continue all these attacks from their side, trying to kill every Ukrainian who is trying to work with the Russian military authorities. Furthermore, if we're talking about the Kharkiv, there were some updates from the area near Slobozhanska. From this area, I'm not sure that the Russian source map has been updated. Yes, they have updated that there was shelling in this area near this town Blagodatne and near this Maspanova, these towns. So maybe it's some kind of artillery preparation. Maybe the Russians are planning to activate themselves in this area as well. So we also are going to follow this situation. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon. Military Summer channel reminds you that we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Have a good day. Bye bye.